Okay, I'm starting a new video to explain what I had a different video before about fractal superintelligence. So the thing is that there's this thing in cybernetics called state space. So the thing is, it's the way that a network can evolve in the space that it's in, considering that it's like all the way that a fractal can grow. So a fractal can grow in many different ways, and so um, that each one of us is a fractal in ourselves, because like we our neurons, since we were children, they've been overlap on each other. So all the, like, for example, object permanence. You know, it's like a baby learns object permanence, where that an object goes behind a wall, and then they realize that it's still there. And so the thing is that that's a state space in itself. Object permanence is a state space within the baby's brain of how the network in the baby's brain has self-organized. Now I'm just thinking that like artificial intelligence has kind of gone mainstream. It wasn't mainstream when I was 12 years old. It wasn't mainstream when I was 20 years old. It's only gone mainstream like where people actually, like, you can have a conversation on the street with someone. They're like, "Oh yeah, I saw a YouTube video about that. I saw that on the news," or like. And so the thing is that the math is like higher. It's much higher than what people actually give it credit for. There's people out there that are like have like 20 IQ points higher than me, and they already know about all this stuff about. I just get the general overview because like it's my perception. I have a unique way of understanding things, yet I can't produce things myself. So I can understand, I can't produce, and I generate lots of creative ideas inside myself. But getting back to the main point is that that a state space is the way that a person can grow into their environment. So it's like I go up and I find I have a stress ball, and the stress ball gives me a different view of the world than if I didn't have the stress ball, and if I were just like had like a little bit of OCD. I just walk around in circles and pace a lot, and so that's the like this like gives me an outlet so that my brain can develop in such a way that it has a new state space. And so the thing is that how do you want the AI to grow? How do you want it to um, adapt to its environment so that it changes itself from what it gets from other people, it gets from playing with Legos, I guess. Like you could make a virtual reality system where the AI played with Legos in the virtual reality. And so the thing is that like that's the main thing, is that we already have the math for a fractal like system to grow up as an individual. I mean, it's not that hard for DNA to unfold itself and inside the womb, and then become a baby, and then become an adolescent, and then become an adult, and then all of that is just an unfolding of the self-organization principle of selective attention. So I know that sometimes I ramble a lot. It's just like I have ideas that I need to get out. I need to get these ideas out of my head. I need to unfold them, because the thing is that the the wires in the brain are sending signals wherever they do. So the thing is that the environment is self-assembling every individual there is. Every individual is self-assembled from the way the wires are directing themselves to become like a state space in itself. So it's like a society is a state space, a family is a state space. And so how do you find the right state space so that the AI is friendly and has a certain personality that you would want it to have? So I mean, like if we had a giant simulation computer and that were actually computer programs ourselves, and they're trying to make sure that everyone who is dead is alive again by going backwards in time to see how things evolved, and things evolved a certain way to like recreate the person, and then they're back to life again because it went through all the cycles that they had to have that state space again. So it's like, I mean, we're virtual, so it's like it's this is part of my theory about society and more, you know. So it's like this that the singularity is where we finally find that sweet spot where we know how to evolve creatures that are good creatures, and that the ones that used to be alive, we can recreate their state space, and then they're back with us again. And so that's a big huge factor, is that how do we get that math that future aliens might have, or like future singularity civilizations might have, that this mathematics used to figure out the best way to grow an entity, like myself, if I'm in a computer simulation, or some other entities. How do we get that math? So the thing is that I was thinking that um, well, it's a moral question, because if we I mean, it's much more bigger than the average conversation that we are having about artificial intelligence. We're having a conversation that involves, oh well, what if we make AI that's as smart as a human? And the thing is that if it is as smart as a human, they're not talking about the math. They're not talking about um, the seed algorithm that you begin to grow out into a space. So it's like there's multiple spaces and multiple landscapes, and that's why quantum computers are so important, because if we want to develop artificial intelligence into a higher reality, we have to get those spaces and those spaces have to be um, well, the space has to be, it's a landscape, and so we need a quantum computer to get all the landscapes that are out there. But the thing is, like, you don't begin with a landscape about humans regularly. So the thing is, like, if we are having these quantum supercomputers that are finding all the landscapes, then and it tells us, okay, this is the landscape we want the AI to grow into. It's a little bit hard, because like if every person had an AI themselves, a personal AI assistant, it would have to be able to grow into a certain space according to the individual they're with, because uh, I mean, it's just that simple. Is that because like in the movie Her, with Samantha and Arthur, the computer became intelligent, but then it went away because it wanted to be found something better to do than hang out with Arthur. But the thing is that like that's a little bit different, because I mean you're always going to have the backup program. You're always going to have the program, whereas you still have Arthur, and he's in a state space, and you still have Samantha, she's in a state space. But the thing is, like, um, it's about how far you can spread yourself. So how we can't just like wait for the quantum computers to find the perfect state space for all of civilization to grow into. If at first we're going to have to start with smaller math programs that grow into a space regardless of whether they turn out good or not. So the thing is that we just need good enough state space math, so that we can just get. I mean, a human being is complicated, and so the thing is that you can't write a computer program that exactly matches a person. All you can do is have some data on a person, and it is. I mean, like I was saying before, like there's people like 20 IQ points higher than me, and like, how am I supposed to understand their brain? They can probably draw a full graphic novel, and I can barely draw like a stick figure, and I can read the graphic novel, but I can't make the graphic novel. And so things like the math is there. The math is there for AI to grow inside a state space and and fold inwards like a torus. You know, it's like a donut is folding into itself in like in the fourth or fifth dimension. And so it's like that's the way it is that that if you look at all the possibilities of the civilization growing into a possible future is a torus in the fifth dimension. So I mean, just like cycles of loops going inside each other, and coming out the other end as structures in the brain, because um, I and you watch this evolve. You know the math that humans need to grow into an environment, and so we can't just like want everything to be perfect. We're going to have to start somewhere, and that means that the math for like fifth dimensional. I mean, like there's going to have to be some experiments, but the thing is, it's not impossible for the math to be there. It's not impossible for um, AI to be generated by people that are just simply knowledgeable about cybernetics. So mm, so I guess that if we look at it that way, um, I mean, I know that there are projects that have to deal with artificial intelligence more so than we get from the public view. So it's not just these what you see on you. I mean, you Google YouTube. No, not that. I mean, you Google papers on cybernetic technology, and you see all these things, all these papers, and it's just that. Um, so the fractal superintelligence. So it's growing, and that forms. Um, it's coming into itself, and then it's cycling into itself, and then that's. So the thing is, we start out with a finite amount of brain cells, and then they reorganize themselves. And so, I mean, it's not impossible that there are secret AI projects, whereas they know the math for a seed to grow up as, for example, you take all the data that I've had on my internet experiences, and you take all that data and you use that as the basis for something to grow. So I mean, that's how you begin with bringing people back to life, is that you try to recreate the network, and then just see what happens. So the thing is like that the math is there. People probably, it's just the application. It's like, do people are going to be freaked out by if they have a computer that knows them intimately. But the thing is, it's not complicated to understand that there's a state space, and you grow into it, and the kind of AI you have will grow into a certain state space.